big, hairy, audacious goals. So, we've got a client who retired and then 3 years later decided he wanted to start a new business. So it's like, okay, cool, we can help look to fund that. YOLO, you only live once, anyone want to go skydiving? Or FOMO's, fear of missing out. And not talking about going after meme stocks with that, but there's different options. So we can create different portfolios to do different things and make sure that your core portfolio always provides enough income for you month to month, so that that money never runs out, and then other portfolios to do the other goals as part of that. And then that's what the portfolio starts to look at. And so this is actually what it generally looks like on a wrap platform. So you've got your account, and then we divide it into sub-accounts. And what we're doing is effectively this is based on cash flow. So first 2 years of your withdrawals we hold in cash. Because if we have a COVID or a GFC type crash and the market's down 30%, we're not going to call you up and say you need to adjust your spending down 30%. Because I don't think the power company is going to agree, or the phone company, or anyone else. So actually that's just sitting in cash, which means it didn't drop during that time. The next 3 to 5 years cash withdrawals are in a pretty conservative portfolio. About 30%, 50% growth, mostly defensive, so that it's pretty capital stable and make sure the money's still there. But then we can start to actually put in more growth, take on more risk, more volatility, the longer period out. Because the money you need to withdraw for your living in 10 years' time, that can be volatile. That needs to outpace inflation and build some growth into your portfolio so that you've still got plenty coming through. Does that concept make sense? Sort of? A little bit annoying? So how do we do it? Well, our process is nice and staged, I guess would be good language. So the first part is around an initial discussion over an hour or two, cup of tea, beer, whatever takes your fancy, to sit down and get to know you and kind of go, tell us everything about your situation, what's important to you, your family, what's going on, what have you got, what are you trying to achieve, what are you worried about, what are the ideas that you think aren't possible. One of my favourite ones in the first meetings when people just go, oh, this doesn't really matter because it doesn't concern you, but I can't do blah. It's like, challenge accepted. So I want to know those sort of things as well, because it's like, well, why can't you do that? So finding out what's possible. From there, we put together an investment proposal, which is about providing transparency. So you know exactly what you're going to get, you know what the fees are going to be, you know what the time frame's going to be, you know everything you need to be able to make an informed decision. At that point, you've then got a go, no-go decision. Once you've asked every question you could possibly think of and you've got all the information you need, and we don't charge up until that point. So that's about you guys getting comfort. Not everyone does it this way, but a lot do. Once there's a go decision, that's when we get cracking on the analysis and do all of the standard deviation and roll the dice 1,000 times and do all the crunching. That's I'm pointing to Josh over here, the statistician. So no, that's where we start to construct your portfolio, work out the different goals, what it's trying to achieve, do the forecasting, the modelling, come up with different ideas. And then we put all of that in accordance with the regulation, we put that all in what's called a statement of advice. And it's just a document that documents all the advice and it tells you exactly how it works. And that there's going to be X% in the Magellan Infrastructure Fund. And this is what the fee is on that fund, and this is what the forecast return is, and this is what it's holding. So we go down to minute detail. Implementation is then setting up your account on the wrap platform, giving you access, and then transferring the funds across and then investing it all. And then there's ongoing advice because your life changes and we're modelling out to 100, but your situation changes all the time. So we factor in that, and also our world changes. So we had a fund manager of 11 years decide to close down a fund the other day. So we had to go and find an alternative. And we long listed about 90, we shortlisted 12, we really shortlisted 6, and then we chose our preferred replacement one. So stuff happens that you've got to adjust to. Someone in the last presentation said you can talk about fees at all, so we put it in this time. The thing with investments, so don't ever deal with anyone that's on commission for investments. In fact, don't deal with commissions anyway. But you want fees and you want transparency. So we're 100% transparent, 100% fee only, and there's going to be different fees in there. Because if you don't want fees, you can go and get a term deposit and you can go backwards by 1.5% a year. But if you want returns, then it's going to cost because there's going to be a lot of people that have actually got to generate those returns. I was in the US a couple of years ago visiting PIMCO as part of our research. And we pay for that. We don't, the fund managers don't pay for any of that, we do it all at our cost. I walked out and talked to a colleague and went, the amount of energy, they had an 18-storey building in LA that was just one of their operations. the amount of energy that was going in to generate a 3% before fees and taxes return for a fixed interest was off the charts. And the guy turned to me and said, that's what it takes these days to generate 3%. I was like, yeah, fair call. It's hard work. So you've got the platform fee, because it costs to put it all on the piece of software and to do the consolidated tax reporting. You've got fund manager fees, and they're set by the fund manager. We negotiate discounts with them based on volume. I said before, index or passive funds are cheaper and active funds are more expensive. So you've got passive funds as low as 0.2%, and then you've got active funds, 1.5%. There's some higher, but our most expensive one's 1.5%. And on our current portfolio, we're at about 0.8, which is, it's called a weighted average, which is basically if you go, well, if I've got 5% in that fund and 10% in that fund and 20% in that fund, you can do the maths to work out what's the average fee off that. Then you've got our fee, the advisor fee, and then you've got one-off transaction costs, because if you're buying on a stock exchange, you've got to pay the stock exchange when you buy or when you sell. So, but then we negotiate those down at wholesale rates, so they're generally pretty low. To get a whole portfolio in, it's usually about 0.1% roughly, give or take. And so your total fees that you could be expecting if you were running a platform portfolio would be around 1.7 to around 2% before fees and taxes, and about, what do I say there, 1.5 to 1.8 net. So after these guys do your tax return and get you a nice tax refund. Because that's the beauty, is all these fees are tax deductible. Now the fund manager fees, tax deduction is done within the fund, so that's already taken care of, but then the advisor and the platform fee is tax deductible as well. Make sense? Cool. So then you go, all right, well if I've got all those fees and I've got all those expected returns, what do I get? As in, what do you guys get? I know what I get. And so what we've done is, well here's our expected returns after fees and taxes. So net, going to you. So we talked about the term deposit before, so that was based on the 5-year 1.6 with a 33% tax rate. And this is before inflation, so 1.07. Then these are the different growth allocations. And you can see, on average, now if we go back to our standard deviation curve, that's the middle bar. Yeah, so that's your 10-year compound long-term average. But then out on the sides, you're going to be, depending on this one, you're probably going to be somewhere between about minus 14 and plus 14. On this one, you're probably minus 22 to plus 25 would be your range. On your typical 60-40, you're probably minus 14, 15 to plus 17, 18 on any given year, with an average long-term return of 3.21 after fees and taxes. Yep. These numbers adjust as the cash rate changes. So if we were doing this back 10 years ago when the OCR was 8.25, those numbers would be way higher, because everything's based off the cash rate, but also inflation was a lot higher back then as well. So you've got, it'll move off the cash rate, but effectively, global shares you would expect to do cash plus 5%. So if our cash rate's 5%, you expect them to do 10. If our cash rate's at 0.25 at the moment, you expect them to do just over 5. Does that make sense? Cool. You guys disobeyed Anthony and didn't ask a single question along the way. So Anthony's got a couple of roving mics. I can run back to any slide you like, but talk to me.
Oh, just before we do, Pete, I suspect the reason we didn't get too many queries is simply that the pace and enthusiasm of the presentation didn't really give them a chance. But what we'd like to do is just take 3 or 4 minutes, stretch your legs, take a break. If you'd like some refreshments, grab them, or quickly come back and spend a few minutes with any questions we're hoping you may have on this material, or Pete's happy to tackle any investment question you've got. He said he'll give it a go.
That's right.
So I'll see you in a few minutes.